In this example, I want to take you through how to use a product metafield within your Stencil theme, specifically adding it to your product detail page. In this example, I'm going to be working with a size guide metafield. So I jump over to Postman and I've fetched the metafield for my particular product. I can see I have a size guide metafield within the shared namespace, and the value is a string, but you can tell within that string we have a JSON object. That JSON object has an ID, a name, a heading, and a details section. So that's what we're going to use when we want to add to our product page. The first thing we need to do is fetch the Metafield information. Now, there are two ways of doing this. There is the storefront GraphQL API that is available either client-side, you can make your JavaScript requests as long as you've got your credentials, or you can actually add it to the front meta of your Stencil theme and use it within your theme template. Now, that's what I'm going to do today. To get my query, if you happen to be using the Metafields app of ours, Metafields Manager, we have a way of declaring your Metafields up front. Here we have our size guide one, which is what was used to create that example. And we can choose the view GraphQL option, which gives us our GraphQL query, site, product, Metafields, and we're filtering based on the shared namespace, and you can provide a list of keys. In this example, we're just using a single one, the size guide. So let me copy that one. Now what you can do in your front matter is declare a GraphQL node, and this query will then be run by BigCommerce and is available to you within the theme. Now, one thing to note is that because we've double quoted this, any quotes or any double quotes within the query itself will need to be escaped or replaced with a single quote. Okay, so then we have our query. We've not changed anything on the page yet, but I have Stencil running locally. So if I refresh my storefront, it should look exactly the same, but I have debug equals bar on my URL, which provides the context of the page so I can see what variables are available to us. Now, if all things being well, if I search for GQL, we will see our metafield has been returned and is available to us in our context. You can see the path. We want to note the path so that we can update our theme. So we have GQL.data, site, product, metafields, edges, and then we have a list of nodes with our fields for our metafield. So let's jump into our Stencil template again. One thing to note also is that this front matter only works at a top level template. So here we're in product.html. So it's on the top level page. Can you add this particular front matter? And then you can pass it down to any components that you might wish. Okay, so let's get started by looping through our metafields. We noted the path, which was GQL.data.site.product.metafields.edges. Now we know in there, we're going to be dealing with our node, our list of nodes. But in our example, we may have only got one key. We may be requesting many. So probably best for us to filter based on the node key name. So here we'll do a condition checking for size guide. And let's pause here for a moment and do a debug line to make sure that we're on the right path. We haven't made any typos. So I'm going to output this. This is a JavaScript object. So let's stringify this by using the JSON helper and output node. We save that, let Stencil do its work and see the page refresh. And we scroll back up. Great. So now we see our metafield. We have our metafield ID, the metafield key, size guide, and a value, which is looking familiar from our Postman request. Okay, great. So we're on the right path. Now, what we want to work with is the metafield value, which is a string. But within that, we know we have an object. So what we want to do is parse that. So let's replace this debug line with a function called JSON parse, and you can find it in the handlebars helper reference. I go to JSON parse here. So it will take a string, i.e. what's within our node.value, and provide or enrich the context with that object. So we jump back into our Stencil helper to find our new, or use our new helper, and we're using the metafields value, and we'll close that off. Great. Okay, so now we have our object. In our particular example, we actually have a list of objects. So what we're going to want to do here before we actually try and output it onto the page is take the first item from that list. So we'll use another helper that's available to us, which is with first. Now in this instance, because we can either use this or dot to take the current context, which is that list that we've just parsed. So in this instance, let's just do the dot, close my with first block off. Okay, so now we're in the context of that object that we have in Metafields, in our Metafield. So we can use that heading. So we've got a heading here. Let's add a H4 and do heading. And we also have that, we have a details property within our object. So we can output that directly, but we're already dealing with HTML. So let's do triple braces. So it provides the raw output to the page. We know it's safe HTML. Okay. So let's just quickly reflect on that. We have looped through all of our metafields, checked the node key to make sure we're looking at the right metafield size guide, taken the metafield value, which is a string, and parsed it into our current context. Our current context is now an array of objects. So let's take the first object within that array. And we know our object has the format heading and details. And we've outputted it onto the page. So with any luck, we can see we've flipped back to our storefront and we have our children's size guide heading outputted in a H4. And we have our details property, which is actually a HTML table outputted onto the page.